Hey, how's it going? My name's Jay, and I want to get better at Strive.
Bridget.
It's been nearly a year since I started playing fighting games, and I couldn't be happier. Sometimes I lose, sometimes I cheese, but ultimately, I'm still growing and improving. Strive is my current game of choice, and I'm on a journey to learn by analyzing my shortcomings. Maybe one day, I'll be a threat to be reckoned with. This is my improvement diary. It's been a while, hasn't it? Truth be told, I ended up with a bit of a wrist injury. I did have to take it much easier for a while, but that doesn't mean I've just been sitting around twiddling my thumbs. Since last episode, I have taken part in another Bounty Hunter showcase match, streamed my online brackets far more regularly, come backseat me by the way, entered a local all the way in Tokyo, competed in my first ever regional event, and competed in my first ever major event. I've learned an incredible amount in such a short period of time. I have a lot to talk about, so indulge me as I talk through my journey and how I worked on what I discovered. TK Roll. There comes a time in every Bridget's journey where these three syllables will haunt them in some shape or form. TK Roll is a variation of the standard Yoyoki with various different options and benefits. What I value the most are being able to safe jump even when I'm going for a low mix, and of course, the ability to go for the F-Shiki. There is an argument to be had that the regular Yoyoki is good enough, or even more rewarding. And to that I say, I don't know man, I just think it looks cool. I tried multiple times in the past to get the timing and inputs down to execute this consistently, but the last few months I have managed to get the timing consistent enough that I'm willing to use it in bracket. The goal of learning TK Roll isn't for it to replace the regular Yoyoki, but for it to be used alongside it, to mental stack the opponent more and more. Because TK Roll is so uncommon at my level of play, I found a ton of success representing the F-Shiki early in the match, and then almost exclusively going to a low mixing Yoyoki for the rest of the game. The threat of the triple overhead is so unusual that it really stands out, and the opponent will just impulsively keep blocking high. Well, despite all this, the 2 months of on and off practice has only really managed to garner just the basic high-low of this mix. There are more options to learn, and maybe, just maybe, I can make this more threatening than my basic Yoyoki mix in the future. So that is what I've been doing. It has worked, but I feel like there's better ways of going about it. It might be a playstyle difference, but I want to at least try it. So before I start, I'm just gonna do a couple TK rolls practice, like warm-ups, right? That's still something that I am trying to fully incorporate into my game plan. So what's happening here? I have the opponent in the corner, and I'm spending every bit of resource I have to get the first hit. While this isn't exactly a wrong way to play, there is another option to open up the opponent. Instead of throwing everything I have, I can play slower and force my opponent to make the first move. Bridget's corner pressure can be suffocating, so the likelihood of them desperately trying to escape the corner is very high. For the best players, it isn't enough for them to escape. They're looking to swap places with me. By slowing down and punishing the opponent's escape, I can save the resources for future shenanigans. Some of the options I've encountered are Super Jump and IAD. I can use 2H for this. 6P and low profiles. Well, 2S works here. DP and White Wild Assault, and I guess I could just block this? Fast mashes. Well, stagger pressure and frame traps. What are those? Well... One piece of feedback I got during a long set with a friend was that my meterless pressure just wasn't scary. One way to fix this is to introduce frame traps and stagger pressure into my game plan. I've mentioned a few examples of these in previous episodes, but you know when you learn a new word and just start using it without really knowing what it means? Yeah, that's basically me here. Stagger pressure is where you purposefully leave punishable gaps in order to bait the opponent into challenging or mashing. In Strife specifically, block stagger pressure has the added benefit of generating more risk. Frame traps are where you delay a sequence only a few frames in order to catch mashes. Combining the two creates this cycle of encouraging the opponent to press buttons and then countering those buttons. Landing a crazy counter hit combo after conditioning the opponent to mash may just be one of the best feelings I have ever experienced in my time playing this game. Okay, so I've already plugged my stream, but part of the reason I've actually gotten quite into it is the feedback I get from playing game to game. I'm kinda hanging this giant sign that says, "This stream has the backseating stamp of approval." The advice I get is extremely varied, and there is a lot to learn from it. Some examples include, but aren't limited to, 5k is a great button, try and learn to use it in more scenarios. You should practice whiff punishing more. In these situations, you have enough time to get a close slash punish instead of a 2k 2D. Get a feel for how long it's been since you've looked at your resources. You can safely assume meter and burst gain based on that amount of time. Any and all advice has been super welcomed and appreciated, since there is no real shortcut to improving on a game genre that I only got into less than a year ago. However, there has been one observation that has really stuck with me. It feels like you panic on your own pressure. Let's break this down. Last episode I showed that I was scared to take risks, even when I was ahead, causing me to lose momentum and pressure in games that I should have won. This is still relevant, but different to what's being said here. The panic here stems from the fear of not wanting to screw up my offense. As a serial lurker in the Bridget Discord, I have accumulated different options that I could use to open up my opponent. In theory, this is extremely good. The more options I can present, the scarier my pressure. Right? The issue is that I am being somewhat overwhelmed with the amount of choices I could pick from in the heat of the moment, leading to dropped block strings, mistimed setups, and worst of all, large punishable gaps. Panic isn't even exclusive to my own pressure. It extends to neutral and defense too. So the question becomes, what can I do about this? Autopilot is a word that I have seen thrown around as the reason why many people haven't performed as well as they could have. They will stop thinking in the match and go back to their default comfortable strings and pressure. Sure, that sounds bad, but let's look at it at another angle. Autopiloting means that you aren't thinking exclusively on what you're doing. But what if that just means that you can focus on other things during the match instead? I don't know, just got some ideas that include, but aren't limited to, reacting to the options with 5k, having the muscle memory to quickly whiff punish, knowing to go for a close slash punish instead of instinctively pressing 2k, being able to check resources whilst pressuring the opponent on block, freeing up time to focus during the neutral. So, how does this actually work? Well, for block strings, I could work on these new variations in the lab, and then exclusively use them during tower and casual matches. Building up that muscle memory is extremely important to ensure that I only need to decide which route to go, instead of thinking about how to do them. This is probably the most painless of the options though. Things such as whiff punishing and learning to press the alternate mash buttons will have to be learned from actively being wrong, pressing late, and getting dumpstered as a result. It's important to make sure that I am really trying to make the attempt. Even pressing late will slowly build that muscle memory to eventually be successful more frequently. Well, but until then, I'm going to have to continue to I feel that I am rapidly approaching the point where the outcomes of the match will be decided not only by my slowly improving neutral, but by how well I know the ins and outs of each matchup. A great start for the basics was this video by Yato. Yato? Yato? I don't know. It has been important going into each set with a game plan in mind, even if it was as simple as what buttons are good at round start and who the aggressor is. This is good and all, but eventually I'm going to need more in-depth knowledge. There are two ways I've been working on my matchups. The first one is
So, why is there a Nago on my screen?
"'Cause I'm Hotashi now!" The second, more reasonable one is
If anything, I just go October.
Whee! One more time. Right.
This is so fictional. Right, this is a great note to leave. Thank you for the game.
Is to like, instead of like being at this range where he'll be able to hit the low J2K, you try to run up deeper into him so he's forced to do a high J2K above your waist.
So if you like just react to like the summon, you just run after her. Because if she does the kick, because you're just waiting for the summon, you just keep sitting there and it goes into the exact same situation where she needs to summon or recall. So like, unless basically like I'm right next to you, like either you want to block or you want to like box for a DP, but you don't really want to mash. Unless like, unless you have like a really good reason, unless they've shown that they're constantly going for some kind of like stupid reset, you really don't want to mash here.
Look, it might feel like you're being a little bit of a nuisance, but find your friendly character main and ask them for advice. As long as you're being respectful, there's a good chance they will jump at the chance to gush about their own character.
Take the time that is allowed to you. Take a swig. Man looks like he's about to go out fishing afterwards. He's got the fishing cap on.
The gloves in case of like the fishing rod hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
Picture this, I'm in Birmingham for the first day of VSF, a major Strive event. It is the second round of pools, and I have been called to the stream setup for my next game. After asking around, I go to the stage expecting the Leo matchup. However,
Hopefully seeing where Oh no.
and the first round begins after a quick button check. After managing to find my way in, I keep enough pressure on my opponent that I eventually take the first win.
But straight back into characters like that wasn't even a moment's hesitation there.
MJ Cube, again. MDL tag, so going to be used to playing against players like Snake and stuff, that meltdown. Going to be able to pick up matchup knowledge off that, where you're seeing it being utilised right there to close out.
Unfortunately for me, the swap does pay off as they make use of the flash kick to punish gaps in my offensive pressure. Now that I've set the scene, allow me to reflect on how the following game went after doing some post-tournament self-analysis. The score is now 1-1, and we have both had a chance to feel out each other's habits. I had noted that their choice to change the Leo was definitely for the flash kick reversal. They were mainly using the flash kick to interrupt the beginning of my setups, but far less frequently during the middle of my pressure. This had led me to believe that they were unfamiliar with how to deal with Bridget pressure. Because of this, I had decided that my newly learned TK roll would be the key to winning the set. The safe jump provided by the TK roll allowed me to bait the flash kick on every hard knockdown. In addition to this, the TK roll being used by so few of the other Bridget players brought an unknown element to the table that my opponent would have to deal with. Ultimately, I'm glad that I stuck with my decision to commit to representing the TK role, despite the likelihood of executional errors. Round start against Leo is usually 5B, which will beat out most other common options, except 6B. But 2S can call this out. In general, I believe I did a pretty good job cycling through my ground style options throughout this set. If I was to ignore the drop combos and executional errors due to my nerves, I would say the biggest issue I had with the way I played would be not only maintaining good spacing, but using that spacing to punish committal options. For example, here, the heavy fireball startup could have been interrupted with a reactive 5H. Another point of interest would be keeping track of resources. Knowing when I can kill can be the difference between a 1 round and a thrown round. The final thing that really stuck out to me was when and where I decided to take risks. With a resource, round, or even game advantage, I could afford to take more risks. If the risks didn't pay off, I would fall back into an even game state. However, if the risks did pay off, I would be widening the gap between us. I would essentially be taking the game into my own hands, and not even giving my opponent a chance to make a comeback. In this second round, this manifested in my willingness to try to call out air approaches with the more rewarding 2H, instead of reacting with the safer 6P. If I were to take a step back and look at the set as a whole, I think there's a lot to be proud of. My personal standout moments were this wall-to-wall scooter RC conversion that I had learnt the week prior,
Coast to coast, perhaps? Yes, sir!
my decision making when it came to picking which super to use to break the wall based on their resources, and finally having my TK role practice pay off. When VSF took place, I had been playing fighting games for 10 months or so, and despite errors in decision and execution, I honestly think I can look back at this set and be extremely proud of how far I have come. Just ignore the following stream game. It never happened. I promise. So, where does this leave me currently? It's becoming more and more apparent that solely focusing on Bridget tech will only get me so far. Learning to apply my knowledge is really the key to improving right now. I'm not someone that can learn completely off vibes, so only time and practice is going to help with the muscle memory and game sense that I am unfortunately lacking. There are many more things that I could talk about, but I've been rambling on for a little too long now. I'll leave that until next time. So, until then, let's keep growing together. I'll catch you in a bit.